So Jennifer Gledhill is accused of the murder, but her parents now are facing charges as well. Take a look. Her father, Thomas Ray Gledhill, 3 counts of obstruction of justice. Her mother, Rosalie Christensen Gledhill, 4 counts of obstruction of justice. Which brings us to the next question in our investigation. Were Jennifer Gledhill's parents involved? And if so, to what extent? Joining me, psychotherapist, author, and host of Talking Live and the Bite-Sized Podcast, Dr. Robi Ludwig, and still with us, retired police commander Mike King. All right, Dr. Robi, I want to read for you from the affidavit of probable cause for her mother. Rosalie Gledhill assisted in purchasing a new mattress for the suspect. Rosalie Gledhill told police she was at her daughter's home on the night of September 24th to pick up clothing and stated she was there for less than an hour. Witnesses who lived nearby stated they had observed Rosalie Gledhill in the home cleaning. Witnesses stated she was there for over 5 hours. Rosalie's cell phone was seized, but the phone had been reset and information was lost. Dr. Robi Ludwig, tough spot for a mom if you get a call. You know, if prosecutors, what they're saying is right here, it would seem that mom maybe got a call, big trouble here. Tell us, what goes through the mind of a mother if you get a call from your daughter who has just committed, allegedly, right, the ultimate crime, and she needs help cleaning up, literally cleaning up the mess?
Well, a mother that had morals would say, I want to do anything I can to protect you, will get you a great lawyer, but to actually get involved in covering up a crime, as I don't know if you can hear the sirens in the background, that's just not okay. And it's a form of enabling. Now, we don't know what the daughter shared with her mother about the state of her marriage and whether Rosalie somehow felt sorry for Jennifer and felt that Jennifer was just trying to survive. We don't know what stories went back and forth. We don't know the history of how the mother might have enabled her daughter to feel entitled to do whatever she wanted because the mother would have her back. Clearly, that would be self-destructive. But it's very dangerous and very suspect. I think somebody who was of higher moral ground would want to protect their daughter, but would do it in a legal way. Don't say anything, don't touch anything. We'll get you a lawyer and we'll take things from there.
Okay, Mike, I want to read for you the affidavit of probable cause for the father. On September 26, 2024, the suspect messaged Thomas Gledhill that the mattress be delivered to his address. The suspect's cell phone message showed she would pick up the mattress from Thomas. Thomas denied cleaning his daughter's house on the night of September 24th. Witnesses stated they saw Thomas at his daughter's house and that he was cleaning. Data from the suspect's cell phone showed on the afternoon the suspect was north of Salt Lake County. The suspect's cell phone showed she had called Thomas Gledhill and then promptly the phone was shut off. Immediately after the phone was turned on, a call was made to Thomas Gledhill. During the time up north, the only calls made by the suspect were to Thomas. What are your thoughts about how this potentially went down and when the father gets involved here if these allegations are true?
If I could, I'd like to put it in 2 buckets. The first bucket being what was going on at the time of the murder, or I feel pretty comfortable saying the murder. And that was that Dad later says to law enforcement, hey, I was only there for an hour, but he makes this admission where he says, I didn't go in where the incident happened. So he clearly knows that there's something going on there. And like Dr. Ludlow said, they weren't making calls to law enforcement and saying, hey, let's get the cops involved and let's fix this and we're going to get you help. What it appears is that they went along with the idea of, hey, it may not be a good idea to send the new mattress to your house. Send it to ours, we'll deliver it over. That testimony that they were there until 11 o'clock at night or 5 hours, to me, Vinny, is really big because it's so opposite of the idea of we were only there for an hour. That's really troubling. But when you start talking about the cell phone and the fact that moments before that phone goes off, she makes a phone call to Dad, that's really kind of interesting, but not that big a deal, I guess. But then the phone goes dead. But when it gets turned on and reactivated, it's almost like calling in and reporting back on mission accomplished. And that's the part that's most troubling to me. And I think something that's going to really be difficult for them to get over.
Dr. Robi Ludwig, again, I think about the dynamic. Could you imagine what that was like at the moment if they're all in the house cleaning up blood and scurrying around and learning that our child, who's not a child, she's obviously a grown woman, but your child is always your child, is in the middle of all of this and what it does to the relationships. And now everyone is charged. Do you think there's the potential for blame going around? Do you think they stick together to the end of all this?
You know, it's hard to know. A parent's love is very strong, and very often parents would do anything to save a child. But in this case, are we seeing a dynamic where the parents sent Jennifer the message, no matter what you do, even if it's wrong, we will back you. We will help you. Maybe Jennifer's been running the show with her parents for a very long time, where she's been telling them what to do and how she needs their help. Also, Jennifer could have told them a very manipulative story. She could have said, I was in a very abusive relationship. It was either me or my husband. He was violent. He was volatile. I didn't mean it. And now I'm scared. And the parents get seduced into that story like they probably have been seduced by her many times before. And they just go into an automatic mode where they're all in it together.
Yeah, and I think about the kids, right? The kids, Dad is dead, Mom locked up, Grandma and Grandpa in trouble. Like, their whole world is being taken away from them. That's not fair. Okay, let's get to the next question in our investigation, and it really focuses on these two and their relationship. What do we know about Jennifer Gledhill's lover, the so-called informant in this case? Still with me, podcast host Gigi McKelvey, and joining me, psychotherapist, author, and host of Talking Live and the Bite Size podcast, Dr. Robi Ludwig. Dr. Robi, what did you think of what the suspect, the defendant, was saying in that phone call?
It was pretty scary. Basically, Jennifer was describing her murderous rage that she had towards people she felt were scum. There was no empathy there. It was just she decided somebody didn't have a right to live, and off with their head. So she's basically describing how she sees the world, how she sees herself in relation to other people. And so I would call this an entitled homicide. She felt entitled to kill off people she decided weren't worthy, weren't human, or that she just didn't like. And she's revealing this to this man, the informant, and then worried that she might frighten him and was worried that someone would see her differently. So she wants to be viewed in a particular way, but her core is so scary. How can that be done? How can the two images live together side by side and not worry somebody? I don't think that's possible.
Gigi, it really seems like this phone call became the deal breaker in this relationship, because when we look at the timing of everything, like, she makes the call before anyone knows he's missing or anything is going on there, but his call to investigators also precedes any of his alleged involvement. Like, they didn't really know about him. He called them. He reached out.
Yeah, and I don't blame him. I guess maybe in her mind she thought she would tell her lover, hey, I've got rid of my husband, we can be together. And it had the opposite effect. It scared the guy to death. And I think that goes to show you her mindset, and the fact that she tried to pass it off in the recorded phone call as a hypothetical situation after she very much in detail described the murder and what she did afterwards to dispose of the evidence, including his body. It shows that she knew. She rattled this guy, And to say it was a hypothetical, I mean, I really was like, is that what you're saying? That confession didn't mean anything. I was just seeing what you would think. This guy had to be terrified. I do know that they started seeing each other around July of last year in 2024 and met through their kids, who obviously had some sort of a connection, whether it be sports or school. And so not a really long-lasting relationship before the murder, just a couple of months. I guess in her mind, she thought once he was gone, they would just live happily ever after, and he would just disregard the fact that she very brutally told him how she murdered her husband and disposed of him.
So, Dr. Robi, the lover becomes the informant, calls investigators, and really, unravels this whole case for them. Him making that call, what does it tell us about him? What does it tell us about their relationship?
Well, I think what we're seeing about the informant, he's a kind of a decent guy, and he also didn't want to be incriminated in this crime, and probably was really, really frightened, did not assess. Sometimes when people are beautiful on the outside, we misjudge and we think they can't be bad, can't be murderous. And so this must have been a shock, and it sounded like he wanted to get ahead of it. He was frightened by her, scared and unnerved that this is something that happened to somebody he was involved with. He did not want to be victimized by her, and he didn't want to be implicated by her. And at this point, any of those scenarios could have happened. So his fear served him well, and he did the right thing.
And Gigi, this becomes really what the entire foundation of the case, right? Are these phone calls, this alleged confession that leads to everything else? And it makes you wonder, why? Why is she doing this? Like, it's the first call that she made. And I wonder if she thought she really did have a future with this man, or she was venting. It's quite unusual, because in most of the cases that we cover, right, love triangle, usually everyone's kind of in on it a little bit. But here, it doesn't seem like he's a part of this at all, unless this is some sort of deflection, and that's where the defense will go in the case.
Yeah, I don't think it's a deflection. I think law enforcement probably looked at his phone very well and saw where he was, and maybe some past communications that showed no indication prior to the murder she was planning on doing that. This poor guy, I guess maybe in her mind she thought, I'm going to tell him, he's going to be so happy we can be together. But he saw clearly he was having an affair with a homicidal maniac who probably didn't bat an eye when she talked about the way she murdered her husband as he slept in the bed, and then disposed of his body in a way clearly we still don't know how or where. Hopefully before this goes to trial, if it does, if she doesn't plead out, they'll find his body, at least for the family. But Vinny, the evidence in this case is so overwhelming. I don't know that they would need his body for a successful prosecution. That bond hearing the other day, I think if you had a jury there, it would have been very easy to convict her on what little came out. And there are certainly things we don't know yet that the prosecution is keeping under wraps at this time.
Yeah, the confession and the blood really put those pieces together. Some no-body cases, if you don't have any of that evidence, becomes very problematic. Dr. Robi, here's a question I have about the mindset of this defendant. What are your thoughts about cause and effect here, if the prosecution's theory is correct, about what motivates the murder? Is this something that would have happened regardless of the affair, or does the affair cause her to want to do something like this?
I think in this case, the affair was a byproduct of Jennifer just wanting something different. And she talks about her other life and Queen of Hearts, and she talks about the desire to murder somebody with a murderous pride. She liked this aspect of herself, that she was willing to kill people who didn't serve her needs, who were scum, who weren't ideal. And perhaps she She was showing off to this lover. Look at what I'm capable of doing. I'm just testing it out, the what if theory. But, you know, Jennifer seemed to like herself and like her ability to be able to make things happen and get rid of people she didn't want in her life. And so she assumed and played it wrong that this guy would feel the way she felt about herself.
Dr. Robi Ludwig, Gigi McKelvey, thank you both so much. Appreciate it.